There are a lot of loud voices in our country claiming to know, without a shadow of a doubt, that the Bible should be taken literally, and also what God thinks about queer and trans people. As a cisgender, queer, Jewish UU theist, this offends me. This vocal minority is clinging to a negative reading of Scripture by applying an anachronistic modern lens to biblical times, or by ignoring contradictions within the text itself. They are using sacred texts as a weapon rather than as a beacon or an olive branch. We all have the right to our own personal beliefs in this country, and religious freedom is something that I hold very dear to my heart. There is a difference, however, between personal religious freedom and opposing one's religious beliefs on everyone else. This vocal minority is using their grand claims of knowing God's will to fuel hate and to systematically harm an entire group of people. They are legislating hate and causing a firestorm of transphobic laws to sweep the nation. Seminary taught me a lot of things, one of which is how many biblically based arguments are cherry-picked to foster one person's agenda, and how many arguments are rooted in a fundamental misunderstanding of the language of Scripture. One of my former professors has a PhD in biblical studies and is an expert at reading biblical Greek and biblical Hebrew. He has taken to online platforms to systematically deconstruct people's bias-fueled tirades by uncovering the ways that mistranslations and anachronistic issues are the backbone of people's anti-LGBT arguments. In our liberal faith, Unitarian Universalism, we do not believe that the Bible is a primary text, and this is a belief supported by archaeological and historical research. What we understand to be Christianity today was formed over the first 400 years of Christianity's existence as councils of church leaders voted on the doctrine that is now considered established. Christianity was formed by the majority will of a small number of people who used their own interpretations of the Bible to craft the dogma that is foundational to conservative Christianity today. If you look at the Bible in its entirety, the New Testament is dwarfed by the Hebrew Bible, the central text of Judaism. It contains approximately 650 fewer chapters. A lot of the arguments in Christianity, including anti-trans arguments, are actually based in Christian interpretations of the Hebrew Bible. The vast majority of people making these interpretations and arguments are reading an English translation of the Hebrew Bible, an English translation likely completed with a biased agenda. Balancing on the Mechitza is an anthology text featuring essays by trans Jewish leaders speaking directly from their experiences. Judaism is a highly gendered religion centered on the binary gendered language of Hebrew. Jewish trans scholars have been reimagining the holy and following in the footsteps of Jewish feminist theologians to challenge a masculine binary divine. Dr. Max Strassfeld is the author of Trans Talmud and Androgynes and Eunuchs in Rabbinic Literature. In their scholarship, they highlight the presence of androgynous characters and eunuchs found throughout the Hebrew Bible. A common focus of trans theologians, these characters cast light onto the presence of individuals in the Bible who today would be described as trans, non-binary, or intersex, depending on their lived experience. As in the case of many unnamed women found throughout the Bible, political decisions in the Bible's writing led to dominant voices being centered while others were pushed into the shadows. Feminist, queer, and trans theology works to illuminate those stories to counter the narrative that queerness and transness is a modern phenomenon. The Non-Binary Hebrew Project has transformed the Hebrew language to make it gender inclusive, actually developing a third grammatical gender system to be used in prayer books and services when binary gender terms do not align with those being honored or included. These same scholars lift up examples where Mishnah texts, those written by ancient rabbis but not part of the original Hebrew Bible, explore androgynous individuals as a, quote, holy subversion of binary thinking. Dr. Joy Layden, in her essay, The God Thing, introduces the concepts that became foundational to Jewish trans theology. Recognized as the first Jewish trans theologian, Dr. Layden sees Torah passages that speak against cross-dressing as not being about one's gender identity, but rather an ancient conflict with the Canaanite people. Yet, those passages spoke to her deeply, and she spoke about wrestling with them and recognizing herself as a third gender, as one who could not transgress God's law against cross-dressing because no matter whether she wore traditionally masculine or feminine clothing, she was still cross-dressing in her eyes. She wrestled with her relationship with God and wondered in this essay whether God kept a special section in God's collection for the prayers of trans children. For Layden, these prayers were religiously revolutionary, wherein she felt God created trans people to be as they are, and then accompanied them as they struggled with a transphobic world. Dr. Layden and Dr. Strassfeld are two of many trans Jewish theologians, yet this work goes beyond scholarship. Reform and Reconstructionist Judaism both welcome trans clergy and support theology which illuminates and celebrates the validity of trans existence rather than erasing it. Christianity also has facets that are explicitly trans-inclusive. For example, the United Church of Christ and metropolitan community churches have been at the forefront of LGBT welcoming and inclusion. There are many other faith traditions whose theology also supports trans people. Today, I'm limiting my focus to Christianity, the historical home of UUism and the framework of my seminary study, and Judaism, my own faith tradition. I had the incredible honor of learning from one of the preeminent Christian trans theologians in the country, Reverend Dr. Justin Sabiatanis. While I took many classes with this professor, the Queer and Trans Theologies class that closed out my time in seminary was by far the most impactful. Dr. Sabiatanis is a minister serving in the United Church of Christ. He also spent time with the Metropolitan Community Church and even a portion of his life with the UUs. In his essay, Holy Creation, Holy Creative, he unpacks the creation story portrayed in Genesis. He challenges the notion that God created oppositional pairs in this story. In Genesis, God is described as creating both day and night. For Dr. Sabiatanis, however, there is much more nuance to the reality of day and night. There is dawn. There is dusk. There is the brilliance when the glowing orb breaks up out of the sea, and sunset when it tucks back in under for the night. As we we all know, we are not immediately cast into darkness when the sun sets. We get to enjoy the whispers of pink, transforming slowly into the brilliant glowing blue of a clear post-sunset sky. He continues in his essay to explore the gradated differences between land and sea, noting the special place where the receding water of a retreating wave soaks into the waterlogged sands below. He also explores the sea coral, which falls somewhere between this clear delineation of plant and animal. In Dr. Sabiatanis's Christian perspective, gender must also be seen as intrinsically nuanced and complicated, a complexity that is just as divinely rooted as the rest of creation. Just as we know nature is a spectrum, not a binary, so too is gender. Trans theology is vital, but what do things look like in the day-to-day? For the 2019 International Trans Day of Remembrance, a phrase was created: "Give us our roses while we're still here." This phrase was then popularized by B. Parker, a Black trans artist, who created a series of posters with these words. "Give us our roses while we're still here" was a plea to celebrate and honor the trans community every day, not just when their lives are brutally taken in acts of violence. Since 2014, our church has held a Trans Day of Remembrance observance every November, a crucial ritual and an important moment of solemnity. Yet it is just as important for our church and larger denomination to live into our faith. For the cis members of our congregation, myself included, to fight for the rights of trans and non-binary individuals, to honor the lived experiences of our fellow trans and non-binary congregants. As UUA President Reverend Susan Frederick Gray has said on multiple occasions, this is no time for a casual faith. As UUs, we are part of a larger faith coalition that can support the good theology. We need to live into what our radical theology is calling us to do. The first principle of Unitarian Universalism is the inherent worth and dignity of every person. We rattled this off so quickly that it can be easy to overlook what this really means. Every person is worthy of respect and love and compassion. Every person is worthy of being fought for. To truly live into this theology is much easier said than done. But our seventh principle is equally radical and equally important. Respect for the interdependent web of which we are all a part. The conservative strategy is to divide and villainize, but the truth is there are more people who are opposed to these horrific laws and policies than are in favor of them. If one person suffers, we all suffer. To truly believe in both of these principles, to commit ourselves to living into them, means that for those of us who are cisgender, we cannot stay silent during this time. And of course, as UUs, we have our own long journey to go on to be truly trans-inclusive and trans-welcoming. Later in this morning's service, we will sing the classic hymn, "We'll Build a Land." While this hymn has a very powerful message, it also is stuck in binary gender. In all fairness, a product of its composition in 1979. We will be updating the lyrics of this hymn today, but updating lyrics and sharing pronouns from the pulpit and fighting anti-trans legislation is just the beginning. What does it look like to not just claim our church as a welcoming congregation, but to live into it? To fully embrace our radical theology in the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and in the need to respect the interdependent web of which we are all a part. We can be the loud voices reclaiming what it means to be a person of faith. The loud minority doesn't have the right to control this discourse. As UUs, we are part of a proud tradition of religious liberals who spoke up in times of injustice. Now more than ever, we cannot be silent. We cannot let others speak on behalf of all those who consider themselves to be people of faith. The anti-trans legislation sweeping the country is written by 3 conservatives and essentially is being copied, pasted, and perhaps slightly tweaked. This is why this is happening so fast. That loud minority is trying to dishearten us into inaction. It is no longer as politically popular to attack the LGBT community, so while cisgender queer folks are lured into a false sense of security, the trans community is being set up as a scare tactic, as the latest big bad that are a threat to society's children. The vocal minority is counting on cisgender apathy to let this happen. There are many ways to support the trans community right now. The Trans Lifeline is an incredible service, a suicide prevention and crisis hotline for trans people by trans people. They need your financial support now more than ever. Even better, you can give directly to trans people. Philly has multiple reparations groups on social media where funds can be given directly to trans people of color, those who are most likely to be targeted by discrimination and bigotry and violence. I implore you, don't let yourself get overwhelmed or disheartened by the sheer number of bills they are throwing at us. As was said from the pulpit last week, this is not just a Florida or Tennessee issue. These laws are being proposed in Pennsylvania. This violence is happening across our state and right here in Philadelphia. This is not the time for a casual faith. This is not the time to let other people dictate what people of faith believe. And this is absolutely not the time for silence. Let us make a better world for all of us. May it be so, and amen.
Hi, I'm Reverend Hannah Capaldi.
And I'm Reverend Abby Tennis. We are the ministers at the First Unitarian Church of Philadelphia, where our mission is to awaken love and justice in our lives and in the world.
We're so grateful that you watched, and we hope that the sermon connected with your soul.
We also want to invite you to join us for a live worship service every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. You can always find the link to that service on our website at www.philauu.org. In these services, you'll hear words like you've just heard, and you also get a chance to greet one another, pray together, sing together, and we even hold a virtual coffee hour after services to get a chance to greet some new and old friends.
If you want to support the mission of this community and you feel moved to give, you can do so by going to the website that Reverend Abby just mentioned. You can find that link below, or you can text 215-709-5095 and follow the prompts to give.
If someone in your life needs to hear these words today, we encourage you to share this video. And again, thank you so much for watching.
We hope to see you soon.